All right, what up? So, if you're watching this is the conventional deadlift tutorial. Hopefully it's not too loud in here. I got a microphone because it is really loud in here, but I wanted to make sure I was heard clearly. So yeah, conventional deadlift tutorial is gonna break it down for you guys. There's two main ways to deadlift, and this goes for conventional and sumo. You have a bottom-up setup and what we call a top-down setup, right? So, an example of a top-down setup is someone who will brace at the top when they're like standing up or they're like in position, but they're not grabbing the bar. Then they grab the bar, set the wedge, and go. Typically, top-down setup, once you touch the bar, the lift has started, right? And a bottom-up setup typically is someone who starts at the bottom, pretty much already in position, hands on the bar, ready to go. Then they brace from that position, and then they initiate the pull, right? So a good example of a bottom-up setup is someone like Russ Swole. He's already in position, braces, then he goes. And then a top-down setup would be anyone who braces up top, kind of thing like John Hack. But he kind of conventional is a lot different than most people, but he's an example of a top-down setup. So I'm gonna go over both those and pretty much the fundamental principles that we look for. At the core movement of a deadlift is a hinge, right? So make sure we know how to hinge. But I'm gonna show us how to set up for conventional deadlift. Now this is just a basic tutorial of the positions I want us in, and then from there, based on like your leverages and how you look, we'll make small tweaks here and there. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea and some cues and like a visual representation of what we look for in this situation. It's a top-down setup, basically a preset top-down setup, to where we pretty much get completely set, and then whenever we're completely set, basically in our pulling position, but we're not grabbing the bar, and then whenever we grab the bar, we set our wedge and go, right? So conventional deadlift, general stance, and slightly inside shoulder width apart is pretty much what I prefer. Keep your foot over midfoot, or keep the bar over midfoot, and then to set your position in a top-down setup, all you're simply going to do is you're gonna set your basic knee flexion 2 to 3 inches, and then to cover ground to the bar, and this goes for pretty much any deadlift, you're going to hinge down into position right here. So this is how I like to do a nice top-down setup conventional. Then from here, all I want to do, reach down, pull slack up, bring the hip in, set the wedge, and then pull. Right now, if we do it super fast, this is a deadlift one, obviously it's 135, but if we do it super fast, when it's super light and we set our wedge properly, the bar is going to float off the ground. So what that's going to actually look like from here is I'm here, I'm pulling that slack out, the bar is already coming off the ground, right? Now, here's a full speed demo of it right here. Get completely set, and it's just like that, right? So that is a top-down setup when we are preset right above the bar, right? So now I'm going to show you a top-down setup where we cover more ground down to the bar. Same basic principle, we just give ourselves more bracing room. Now, the benefit of this is you could have a little bit more power off the floor, but there's more margin of error, right? Because we have to go down farther. So what this would look like, you might set your knee flexion, and you might be like right here, and then to cover ground to the bar, you're simply going to hinge back and then pick the bar up and go, right? That would be an example of a top-down setup with a bigger reach. And now an example of a bottom-down setup. Like I said, Russ has a really good bottom-down setup if you just want like a prime example of it. But pretty much, we always set our position by knee flexion, hinging, you get tight, and it's a simple hip shoot, brace, and then we're going, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. The primary example of all three setups. So now I'm going to show you a side angle of all those setups. The biggest thing with deadlift is once the bar raises, our hip and we want the hip and the bar to raise at the same exact point, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. But basically, here's a side angle of the super setup, knee flexion, hinge down, right above the bar. Once we're here, we want to pull slack up, and now this is when it's super light, it's going to come off the ground, right? But pull slack up, bring the hip in to set the wedge, and then we're pulling, right? So basically, with the top-down setup, the pull is going to start as soon as we touch the bar. So as soon as we touch the bar, we're pulling that slack up off the bar, and then the hip's coming in to set the wedge, right? So to be very, very mindful of that. Now, from the side, it's going to look a little bit different, or not from the side, but from a bottom-up setup, it's going to look a little different. We're tight here. Now, I'm pulling slack when I shoot my hip out. Slack's already out, wedge comes in, and then we're initiating the pull, right? So that's how a bottom-up setup would look. Just the basic positions I want us in for conventional, and then from there, we can tweak it to basically your leverages, right? So a few cues I like on conventional. Well, a good deadlift cue is to push the floor away, right? So it's not really a A pull is more of like a push, right? So we want to push the floor away. And then another one I like on conventional is you want to lead with your chest, right? So we do still want our chest to be up, just slightly. If we can get our chest up and open, it's going to get our lats a lot more engaged, right? So from there, we want to almost lead the pull with our chest by pushing the floor away. Those are just two conventional cues I like. But yeah, so hopefully this helped.